It's a new Destiny season, and to celebrate, SteelSeries are giving all you Destiny addicts the chance to win all of this for free. For real, it could all be yours with just a few simple clicks, link in the description, but I'll talk more about it at the end of the video. Gamers, we are very, very close to the sort of E3 season right now, and I am pleased to tell you that I am headed to LA next week. It feels like a fever dream, the idea of going outside at all, let alone catching a plane to another country, but it's happening. As it turns out, a bunch of publishers have decided that they won't let the ESA's bungling get in the way of a good time. I have some stuff booked over there, some secret hands-on sessions that I'm not allowed to talk about yet, but I am pumped and I have plenty of video game PR people whispering sweet nothings into my ear, promising me that there's plenty of big surprises in store for us next week. Love it. On the news front, it's been an interesting week since Sony spilled the beans on their long-term plans. We got an update on The Witcher 4 and the Cyberpunk expansions, and we got a feel-good story that is very hot off the presses, and I think everyone's gonna like this one. Except for maybe Elon Musk. Alright, intro block down, here comes the news. Geraldo might be hanging up his Witcher spurs, but the team at CD Projekt Red certainly aren't done with the franchise. They announced a while back that they were working on a fourth game in the series, hinting that we might be seeing a different protagonist this time around. Odds are it'd be Ciri, and I don't think many people would complain about that. I certainly wouldn't. All of these questions are mysteries for us, but not for the team at CD Projekt Red, who this week confirmed that the next Witcher game has finished its research phase and is now in pre-production. That's a phase of development typically focused on stuff like art and gameplay design, narrative, and prepping the technology the team plans to employ to make it all happen. There's about 100 people at CD Projekt Red currently at work on this stuff, and when it all gets locked down, the game will move into full production where all this stuff gets actually built. A project of this size and scope just entering pre-production phase now indicates that we're unlikely to see The Witcher 4, or whatever it ends up being called, for a good 4 years, maybe more. So mark your calendars for 2026, probably 2027. God damn, that sounds so far away. So if only 100 CD Projekt Red developers are working on The Witcher 4 right now, what are the rest of them doing? They're working on the Cyberpunk 2077 expansion, or expansions, as CD Projekt Red have said that we can expect more than one, and they haven't changed their tune on that. The first expansion was hinted to be coming this year, but it was recently delayed into 2023. This week we got confirmation that the marketing effort for that expansion will begin at the back end of this year, so it shouldn't be too much longer until we start getting some details about it. If you don't want to wait for those details, I have some good news for you. The entire plot for the expansion has leaked online. This is a true thing that actually happened. Someone did some digging around in a recent update to Cyberpunk's main client, and it turns out that the update included all of the dialogue for the expansion's main questline, as well as dialogue for a bunch of side quests. Okay, so can I just ask one thing? Why the fuck would you include all of your dialogue for an upcoming expansion into an update for the live game? What is going on at CD Projekt Red? Regardless, I'm not going to share any of the details with you here since I don't want to spoil it, and to be honest, I haven't actually read any of the leaks. I just want to play it when it arrives, so I can wait. But if you can't wait, then a little bit of Googling will get the job done. One last tidbit while we're on Cyberpunk. Remember how they're making that Cyberpunk anime? It's called Edgerunners. It was announced a while back. It's going to be on Netflix. Its future was called into question when Cyberpunk kind of collapsed out the gates, but the show still exists, and we'll get our first look at it next week during Netflix's Geek Week, which is basically a 4-day event to show off shit that nerds like us would like. You know, like that Cowboy Bebop live adaptation. We all love that. CD Projekt Red's push into the world of TV is by no means unique in today's video game landscape, and nowhere is this more evident than in the recently released and announced slate of programming based on PlayStation stuff. We just had an Uncharted movie, which met with pretty mid-critical reception, but it still made an absolute bucket load of money, becoming the second highest grossing video game movie of all time, after Sonic, believe it or not. There's the Last of Us TV show from HBO, which is currently in post-production. There's a Twisted Metal TV show, for some reason, which has Anthony Mackie attached to it. There's a God of War TV show, which is currently in pre-production. That one's coming from Amazon. And there's a Ghost of Tsushima movies in the works, with the John Wick director attached to that project. This week, we learned about two more. First up, Netflix is making a Horizon Zero Dawn TV show. The information comes from an investor presentation, which doesn't give much away other than the project exists, and Deadline reported that it's still very early in development. I have no idea how they're going to make the CG look good for this, because this show absolutely lives and dies on how convincing those robot dinosaurs end up looking, and if they look anything like the stuff we saw in the recent Halo TV show, then that's a big problem. The other project that was announced, and it's kind of an interesting one, is a Gran Turismo movie. This was revealed by a brief comment from Sony Pictures boss Tony Vinciquerra, I think that's how you pronounce it. He said they were doing something based on the game. Deadline would later go on to report that the project is likely to be a movie and that District 9's Neil Blomkamp is being eyed to direct. Now, right off the top, the idea of a Gran Turismo movie sounds a little weird, but if you think about it, it actually sounds kind of awesome. Gone in 60 seconds, crossed with Fast and the Furious, only with less Nick Cage and less family. I don't know, it just makes sense to me, it seems cool, I'm keen. I hope this actually happens since most of these announced projects usually just peter out at the ideas phase. It was actually a pretty huge week for Sony, who made presentations to investors across all their business lines, including PlayStation. Jim Ryan put together a fancy PowerPoint deck outlining how well Blue Team was doing, and it's a very rosy picture indeed. PlayStation's making money out the arse, just like most video game companies these days. A reminder that the console wars aren't the zero-sum games that those blue and green Twitter avatars paint them to be. Jim's presentation was illuminating because it gave us some insight into PlayStation's growth plans. Obviously, TV is one vector, but a focus on multi-platform is the big one. Get this, Sony wants around half of their games to be on PC and mobile by 2025. That's really soon, and it puts in no uncertain terms Sony's commitment to moving beyond the box sitting under your television. Sony have good reason to be exploring this direction, since the PC ports of Horizon, Days Gone, and God of War netted the company a combined $100 million in revenue in an 18-month period. Not a bad payday, given that both Horizon and God of War had already sold in excess of 20 million units. We're unlikely to see the next Ratchet & Clank game appear on an Xbox console, but it's nice to imagine a world where we might see it on PC. For now, those wanting to play a wider selection of PlayStation titles on PC can do so through the recently refreshed PS Plus, which began rolling out in select territories this week ahead of a broader rollout over the next 6 months. Week 1 hasn't gone so well for Sony though, as pretty much every aspect of the new subscription service has come under fire. First up was the money stuff. If you had pre-purchased discount yearly subscriptions for PS Plus in the past, Sony was charging you for the value of the discount if you wanted to upgrade to higher tiers of PS Plus. If you didn't pay this, your PS Plus service was essentially invalid at that point. Some very frustrating bill shock for those who had the foresight to stack a few years of cheap membership before Sony closed the loophole. Sony would go on to say that this was a pricing error and would revert any transactions associated with it, but it was a bad start for the debut service. Next up was the library of games, which isn't exactly setting the world on fire, especially in territories where cloud streaming isn't available. Sony promised around 700 games on the service, but when it launched in Hong Kong last week, it only had 269. So it's possible that the remaining 431 games are all going to be cloud-streamed back catalog stuff, but I doubt that. It's more likely that Sony will need a bit more time to work up to that 700 game figure, since Sony have said that more games will be made available in and around the launch window. The more concerning challenge with the library though is the quality of the emulation used to bring the back catalog titles to life. This is a pretty big deal in the context of this service, since unlike Xbox Game Pass, PS Plus is very dependent on a library of back catalog classics. The wizards over at Digital Foundry did a deep dive into the emulation of PS1, PSP, and PS2 games, and the results were disappointing to say the least. Sony has opted to use the 50Hz PAL versions of a number of titles, which caused significant frame pacing and stuttering issues when emulated on modern hardware. The promise of upscaled visuals also hits a snag, since it generally delivers image quality inferior to that provided by the emulation community. Digital Foundry did make the point that some aspects of the emulation are pretty solid, like increased frame rates, but overall it follows in Sony's rich tradition of just slightly missing the mark of what retro enthusiasts were hoping for. Wrapping up the Sony block, later this week we are getting a State of Play presentation from Sony, with a focus on third-party titles and the PlayStation VR 2. That third-party thing is important since it's basically Sony saying, don't expect to see more God of War here. But it does leave the door open for a Final Fantasy XVI release date reveal, since Yoshi P has said that the trailer for that was ready to go a few weeks back but was being held back by external factors, probably Sony wanting to drop it at a State of Play showcase. So I'm pretty pumped for that. The PSVR 2 stuff is heating up. We've seen what the unit looks like, and we've just heard from Sony that when it does launch, which will probably be late this year or early next year, it'll have 20 titles available at launch. That is huge. Granted, I'm pretty sure that a lot of those will be ports of existing titles, but that's still a massive library for anyone hopping into VR for the very first time. Imagine playing Beat Saber for the first time. I am so jealous of you. Prepare to have your mind blown and your arms seriously worked out. For real, Wii Fit has nothing on a solid Beat Saber session. Anyway, It's going to be interesting to see what sort of shot in the arm that PSVR 2 will provide the gaming scene, since VR continues to grow in certain segments like business and some social apps, but the gaming side of things has definitely slowed as fewer big developers are committing to VR projects. If anything's going to change that, it's probably going to be a few million new VR headsets and some first-party Sony VR titles. While we're on the topic of hardware, one story did do the rounds this week, apparently confirming the existence of a PS5 and Xbox Series X Pro. It came from a presentation from TCL, who make televisions. And their slide listed not only the existence of such units, but also their likely specs and release date. Pretty huge news, right? Sure, if it were true, but it's not. TCL have no more insight into Sony and Microsoft's hardware plans than my grandma does, but a lot less than my uncle who works at Nintendo. Point is, TCL will make it a guess based on previous Pro console timings, so everyone can just relax. We can't even buy a PS5 at the moment, let alone a Pro, so everyone just be cool, this is not happening. How about some non-Sony news? And what better topic than everyone's favorite punching bag, Battlefield 2042. This week, EA DICE rolled out a roadmap for the future of the game, and it is grim reading. There is faint promise of new content in the very, very distant future, but for the next while, all players can really expect is DICE trying to fix a bunch of broken shit like animations, or walking back horrible design decisions like the weird, jokey voice acting half the specialists have. Outside of the roadmap, DICE revealed that they were no longer developing new content for the ill-fated Hazard Zone game mode. Remember that one? Probably not, because as much as DICE tried to hype this up in the marketing phase, this thing was absolutely dead on arrival within like the first 2 days of Battlefield 2042 shipping. It was a 4v4 extraction mode, but there weren't really any stakes to it since the currency you needed to earn or fight over just flowed so freely, and the whole thing just didn't work. It could have worked if DICE had stuck with it and iterated on it, but they have enough on their plate just trying to keep their main game modes alive, let alone propping up this offshoot. This, along with the downsizing of Breakthrough to 64 players, has been a pretty rough news cycle for the beleaguered shooter, and the community are down bad. Don't go to the subreddit, trust me. Can't blame them though. There isn't going to be another Battlefield game for another 3 to 4 years, so this is the one they're stuck with, and like they say, you gotta dance with the one that brung ya. Or just go and play COD, which is what I expect a lot of Battlefield fans will do come October. Alright, let's do a quick lightning round to put a bow on the news block. There's a rumor doing the rounds that Square Enix's Forspoken may get a delay into 2023, but apparently this is dependent on whether or not Final Fantasy 16 can ship this year. That should not be the basis for a decision to delay a game or not. If Final Fantasy 16 doesn't ship, it doesn't magically make Forspoken ready to go. That's ridiculous. Forspoken was already looking pretty shaky when I saw it a few months back, so a delay, to be honest, would not surprise me. PlayStation exclusive Returnal may be coming to PC. This week, a bunch of files appeared on Steam's backend that used a lot of terminology pulled from the game, stuff like Atropos and Tower of Sisyphus. Wouldn't be surprised about this one, given Sony's stated desire for more PC ports, and the fact that Returnal would feel really, really good to play on a keyboard and mouse. Just weeks after revealing they're spending $3 billion a quarter to manifest a metaverse that no one asked for, Facebook has announced that it will be cutting jobs in its metaverse business. Absolutely no one could have seen that coming, because absolutely no one is paying attention to Facebook's metaverse. The Alan Wake remaster didn't make any money, sadly. Remedy report that they are yet to receive any royalty payments from Epic, meaning that the project hasn't recovered developer marketing costs. A real shame, but hopefully that changes when people circle back in preparation for the release of the sequel. Speaking of sequels, the director of Ghostwire Tokyo has said that he'd love to make a sequel for the game, which is great news to be honest, and I really hope it happens. Ghostwire was a thoroughly mid-game, trapped in a really amazing setting, so it'd be awesome to see Tango Works take another swing at this one. And finally, Gearbox has 9 AAA games in development. I'm sorry, what? Gearbox is the studio behind the Borderlands games, but they're also a publisher, so I assume that most of these games fall under that publishing wing, but 9? I don't know, man. Sounds like some Randy Pitchford sleight of hand on that number. So, what got announced or delayed this week? Well, I gotta say, I can scarcely remember a week this packed with announcements outside of an E3 week, which does make sense since next week is when E3 would have been, and the week preceding E3 has always been full of juicy stuff. Let's kick things off with the 1.0 release date announcement for Temtem. This is a game I played a while back when it hit early access in January of 2020, and I really liked it because it gave us a vision of what Pokemon could look like if Game Freak actually gave a shit and tried to make a contemporary video game. Temtem made a huge splash when it released back then, already feeling super polished and brimming with content. 2 years later, I hear the game has come a huge distance, with tons of new areas to explore, Temtem to collect, and whole new gameplay mechanics that were nowhere to be seen 2 years ago. If you're into your creature collecting games, and this is definitely worth checking out, it's releasing on all platforms September 6th this year. Arcata is a third-person co-op shooter. Think the visuals of Fortnite with the co-op shenanigans of, say, Deep Rock Galactic, only without the digging. It's been in early access since it was announced during a PlayStation livestream last year. The developers have just announced that the early access period is about to end and the game will ship 1.0 on July 5th, exclusive to both PS5 and the Epic Games Store. This looks like it'd be free to play since it's got those, free to play visuals, you know what I'm talking about. It's not though, it's a paid title. I think it's like $20 US. Here's a weird one. The Inquisitor. I hadn't heard of this before, but apparently it's a series of books based on a parallel version of the story of Jesus, where instead of being a pretty chill dude, he was in fact this super angry, vengeful deity who trained and recruited an army of inquisitors to mete out brutal holy justice. Not gonna lie, sounds pretty badass. A game based on these books has just been announced. It's headed to Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. No release window for this one yet. Another early access title hitting 1.0 very soon. This one's called Lost Epic, and it's a 2D Metroidvania with a fairly nice art style. It's been in access for nearly a year and it's sitting at around the 70% mark for Steam reviews. You can decide for yourself when it hits on 28th of July, exclusive to PlayStation and PC. We can't get enough of Viking games, it seems, so how about a Viking city builder RTS hybrid thing? Frozenheim is another early access game that's been out for just over a year, and it too hits 1.0 very soon, June 16th to be precise. This one describes itself as being quite serene, and to look at the gameplay, I believe it. Just a nice vibe coming through on this one. I do plan to boot this one up actually. Big week for Star Wars fans. In addition to the release of the Obi-Wan TV show and the reveal of an Ahsoka TV show, we also learned that Obsidian's Knights of the Old Republic 2 is making its way to Nintendo Switch, and as an added bonus, it will include cut content as free DLC. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R is a remaster of the PS3 era fighting game. It was announced to much excitement a few months back, and now it's got a release date, September 2nd, coming to all platforms. Gollum. Okay, here we go. So, this one was revealed last year, I think at the Game Awards maybe before that, I don't know. We're all pretty pumped to see this one teased since Gollum is pretty fucking cool. I mean, you probably wouldn't want him stalking you as he plans to clobber you to death so he can steal your jewelry, but as a purely fictitious character set loose on hobbits, he's pretty rad. Fast forward a few months and we got a glimpse of some in-engine stuff and it looked a little, not the best. And this past week, a few media outlets got a behind closed doors look at the game, and they were none too impressed. IGN titled their review, "Gollum is looking less than precious," with the strapline, "Mount Doomed?" ? I spoke to another journo who saw the presentation, and they really went to town on it. Obviously too early to judge this one, but yeah, maybe hold off on those pre-orders and wait for reviews to drop. The game ships September 1st for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation, with the Switch version arriving later. After Spec Ops: The Line, developer Jaeger went on to make some really different games. The first was a spaceship combat game called Dreadnought. Didn't really take off, no pun intended. The next was The Cycle, which was a more PvE-focused spin on the Battle Royale craze gripping the industry at the time. The Cycle also didn't find its feet, but rather than throw all that work away, Jaeger essentially repurposed a bunch of it to create The Cycle Frontier. It's an extraction-based PvEVP experience, so think something like Escape from Tarkov or Hunt, only with a very different aesthetic, and it's meant to be a lot more approachable. Oh, and it's free to play. This has been in early access for a while now, but it's about to hit 1.0. It'll be on both Steam and the Epic Games Store on June 8th. Alright, time for the big hitters, and it doesn't come much bigger than Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which this week got a release date announcement, October 28th, arriving on all the usual suspects. This COD is a pretty big deal for Activision Blizzard since it'll be the last annualized mainline Call of Duty release for at least a little while. Next year, COD's unbroken annualized release cadence will be broken, the first time since 2007, as Activision's leadership decided it was time to slow things down a little as the COD franchise moves into new spaces like free-to-play Battle Royale and mobile. Didn't hurt that Call of Duty Vanguard was the lowest selling Call of Duty in a hot minute. Big stakes for this year's release as both the Call of Duty community and Activision Blizzard shareholders clamour for a life raft. Interestingly, it was teased that Modern Warfare 2 would have some sort of Escape from Tarkov style extraction game mode. Didn't work for Battlefield, but to be fair, DICE couldn't make Battle Royale work either, so I don't think we should put too much stock in that. I left one other big Star Wars reveal off the list because this one is so good it deserves its own very hype shout out back here in the big boy section. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. This is the sequel to Respawn's hit Jedi Fallen Order, the game that asked, what if we took an awesome Star Wars story and some cool Uncharted-esque traversal, and then combined all of that with some really weird Souls-like shit? Respawning stormtroopers when you meditate? Come on now, what is that? Nitpicking aside, this was just a great game, and it was awesome to get confirmation a while back that Respawn were going back for another swig of that sweet, sweet blue milk. This sequel is set 5 years after the events of the first game, and without giving away too much, it definitely tackles some very cool storylines and characters that are going to make Star Wars fans very happy indeed. We don't have a release date for this one yet, but the rumor mill indicates it will be first quarter 2023. I'll keep you posted. Only 2 delay announcements this week. The first is that indie game that absolutely stole the show at last year's Xbox E3 showcase. Replaced leans heavily into an art style first demoed by a game called The Last Night, but that game has been stuck in development hell for a long ass time, so Replace was looking to pick up where it left off. Sadly though, Replace seems to be facing its own challenges, with the dev team announcing this week the game will be delayed to 2023. A bummer, but hey, at least it's not cancelled. Unlike that Marvel MMO we heard about a while back. You guys remember this? The team behind Lord of the Rings Online and DC Universe Online were working on an MMO set in the Marvel Universe. A cool concept, and a license to print money if done correctly. Sadly though, the project has been canned, with the publisher confirming to investors this week that the project has wrapped and that funds are being directed back towards Lord of the Rings and DC Universe. Great news for them, bad news for Martin Scorsese. He was really looking forward to this one. So what came out last week? Well, kicking things off was Hard Space Shipbreaker, a really interesting premise. You play as a spaceship salvager, and in both campaign missions and time challenges, you have to disassemble spacefaring vehicles without disassembling yourself in the process. Reviews for this one have landed pretty strongly. It's currently sitting at 78% mostly positive on Steam, while critics were all but unanimously agreed that this rocks. The game sits at a mighty 88 on OpenCritic, which puts it in the top 10 highest rated games of the year, actually. PC Gamer scored it a 91, saying, quote, a satisfying disassembly sim wrapped in cutting workplace commentary. Hard Space Shipbreaker is a gig well worth taking up, end quote. God is a Geek also scored it a 9, saying, quote, Hard Space Shipbreaker is like no other game out there and offers a genuinely immersive and rewarding experience, end quote. Fantastic result for the dev team after around 2 years in early access. Roller Champions is that roller derby game that Ubisoft have been developing for a long ass time. I wondered aloud last week how much had changed between when the game was first shown off back in 2019 to now, and the answer apparently is not a whole lot. Reviewers who played it both back then and here at release have all said the gameplay is pretty much the same, leading everyone to ask, what's been going on the past 3 years? Regardless, the game is now out, it's free. Feedback on it is okay to middling. The reviews that are out are all scoring it a 7 out of 10. God is a Geek scored it thusly, saying, quote, Roller Champions provides a solid gameplay base, but only time will tell how dev support will keep players coming back, end quote. I think that's a really good point here. This got pushed out with absolutely zero fanfare, zero marketing, nada. So you gotta wonder if Ubi have plans to actually support this thing, or if they were just getting it out the door since it was a fully baked cake and no point in keeping it in the oven. As God is a Geek said, time will tell. One series that has remained off my radar for the longest time is the Sniper Elite series, but maybe I should be paying more attention to it since the 5th iteration just hit and the reviews have been pretty solid. It's at around 70% mostly positive on Steam, but the critics are more impressed with the game, sitting at a strong 80 on OpenCritic. Eurogamer deemed it essential, saying, quote, couple that with 8 superbly flexible sandboxes and the most imaginative, interactive representation of the Second World War in at least a decade, and you've got yourself one of the most entertaining games of the year, end quote. It's a pretty good endorsement. IGN were a little cooler on it, scoring it a 7 out of 10 and saying, quote, Sniper Elite 5 is still a satisfying and spectacularly gross way to shoot Nazis in their nether regions, but it feels like the series needs to start aiming its sights a little higher, end quote. I've spoken to a few people about this, and the general consensus is that it's a definite step up for the series, and it fits a really nice stealth action niche that isn't being well serviced at the moment, so while we wait for the next Hitman, Metal Gear, or Splinter Cell game, this could do nicely. Finally, my time at Sandrock just hit early access last week. Not too much to say about this one yet, but initial Steam reviews have been good, with the game sitting at 78% mostly positive. A great start for a game that I know a lot of people were looking forward to. So what's coming out this week? So first up, we've got Silt. Now, I remember seeing this one a while ago, ago, but then I completely forgot about it for some reason, and then I noticed the release date on the schedule this week, and I'm like, hey, I remember you. I'm a bit of a sucker for this style of game, these beautiful explorative experiences. They just work so well for me. That's kind of why I like Trek to Yomi, even though I know it's very different, but I think the core of that game was beautiful exploration, so it worked for me. Silt's beautiful, hand-drawn, silhouetted aesthetic, combined with its thalassophobia-inducing setting, are ticking all the right boxes for me. It's hitting all platforms tomorrow. Here's one flying under the radar that feels like it kinda shouldn't be: Leap. This is a new shooter that looks to be picking up where Tribes left off, with a big focus on large maps and plenty of verticality. Plus, you can ride a hoverboard whenever you damn please, and that's pretty sweet. This one's got both competitive PvP and co-op PvE, so there's something for everyone here. It's hitting early access, exclusive to PC for now, arriving tomorrow. Card Shark is the latest from sort of indie dev label Devolver Digital. It's a narrative-led adventure game, but instead of walking around clicking on things, you're playing cards, and that's pretty cool. There's all sorts of ways to cheat when you're playing, and if you get caught out, things can turn sour pretty quickly. Lovely art style, cool premise. It's out on PC and Switch on the 2nd. And finally, years after the announcement that shook the industry and created a meme template, Diablo Immortal is here, or at least it will be when it launches on June 2nd. Famously, this was originally slated to be exclusive to mobile, hence the "do you guys not have phones" retort, but the backlash to that little quip was so severe that it knocked some sense into Blizzard, and they just recently made the surprise announcement that Diablo Immortal would also make its way to PCs with full crossplay and full cross-progression. This is the first Diablo game in 10 years! My god, I cannot believe Diablo 3 was that long ago, and it also presages the arrival of Diablo 4 sometime next year, so long as the title isn't delayed any further. I know there's great cynicism about how a free-to-play, mobile-focused Diablo will end up, and I too share that. We haven't yet seen the end-to-end in-game economy, and I am bracing for the worst. Having said that, the game itself is pretty solid. I dumped about 20 hours into it over a few different betas, and I was always having a good time. Hopefully Blizzard's money men haven't screwed the pooch on this one too badly. I guess we'll find out soon, so long as we don't get a repeat of the legendary Era 37. If you don't get that reference, look it up. Those were good times. Put this on your radar. Okay, so this week's Put This On Your Radar is a little different because instead of focusing on a single indie game, I want to focus on all the indie games, or at least as many as Valve can fit into a single festival. The Steam Next Fest is an increasingly important institution in the world of video games, since it shines a massive spotlight on what to look forward to in a space that is very often overlooked by traditional games media and content creators. The festival is organized by Steam, and at the center of it is hundreds of demos from indie developers, all of them totally freely accessible. This is your chance to not only see what's coming, but actually play it, a concept almost entirely absent from most AAA games marketing, unless it's those cynically motivated 2-day betas that happen a week before a game launches just so that dumbasses in the comments section can be all like, they'll fix all this on release. It doesn't have the day one patch. Shut the fuck. Anyway, I digress. The next Steam Next Fest is hitting on June 13th, just after the big weekend of summer game showcases and the like. Put it in your calendars, set aside some time to download and try a few demos. I guarantee you that if you immerse yourself in this just a little bit, you're gonna find something truly amazing. Sort of free stuff time now, and a few interesting things to shout out this week. Have you guys seen what's going on over at the Epic Games Store? Last week they gave away Borderlands 3 for nothing, and this week they're giving away the entire BioShock collection. That's the remastered versions of BioShock 1 and 2, plus BioShock Infinite and every piece of add-on content ever released. All for free. That is crazy. Do yourself a favor and grab it fast though, because on June 3rd, another free game will take its place. No idea what yet, because it's another one of those mystery games, usually a good sign, so hopefully Uncle Tim keeps the good times rolling. We're still waiting for the PS Plus and Games with Gold lineups for the month of June, but Amazon did take the wraps off theirs. Commencing June 1st, you'll be able to grab 6 sort of free games, including Escape from Monkey Island, WRC 8, and Far Cry 4. Not a bad bit of swag for $5. And finally, the last thing I'll point you to is Humble Bundle. Now, this isn't sort of free stuff, but it's a hell of a good deal. Right now, they're selling a City Skyline bundle for around $20 US. It has the base game plus almost every bit of add-on content ever released for it. That equates to around $260 US worth of stuff. So this is like a 90% discount on what is basically the sequel to The Sims, or at least the closest thing we can get to it. Pretty good deal. Grab it before it expires in mid-June. Our feel-good story for the week comes courtesy of our friends at Hard Drive Mag. And I say our friends because they're the only publication that truly understands the modern-day gamer and how much we deserve to be dunked on. Earlier today, while I was writing the tail end of this script, hair transplant success story and Elden Ring build guide specialist Elon Musk tweeted out this image, quote, Zodiac Killer letter solved by opening it with VLC media player, end quote. Pretty funny zinger, right? Elon thought so, and so did the publication who wrote it. Hard Drive Mag, who previously have been the victim of Elon cropping their name off an article before retweeting it to 100 million followers, responded to him by saying, quote, hey, I'll give you a horse if you stop cropping our names off our article, end quote. It was a barbed reference to the fact that Elon was recently accused of sexually harassing an airline hostess, where he allegedly offered to buy her a horse if she would give him an intimate massage. Okay. Elon wasn't going to let some lowly gaming publication tell him what he can or cannot post on the website he was totally about to buy, but now apparently isn't buying because of some excuse he managed to find. He responded by saying, quote, well, if you make something that looks like a meme and someone, not me, crops your name, so it goes. Also, this is only a 6 out of 10 meme, so maybe step down from that high horse, end quote. Boom! Take that, hard drive. Papa Elon has decreed that your gag is in the Creative Commons, so he doesn't need to attribute you. Isn't this the socialist paradise you've always wanted? Plus, your joke wasn't even that funny anyway, which is why Elon chose to retweet it, I guess. Hard drive, like a scorned lover, struck back saying, quote, okay, well, let me know what you think about this one, end quote. Linking to an article they wrote titled, Elon Musk admits he wants to travel to Mars because no one hates him there yet. Elon, famous for his quick wit and legendary clapbacks, wasn't going to take this one lying down. He responded, quote, less funny than SNL on a bad day, could make a drunk person sober. Try harder, end quote. To which Hard Drive responded, quote, well, you're the expert on SNL's bad days, end quote. With a photo of that fucking Wario sketch that Elon did. My God in heaven, that was cringe. Hard Drive, though, to their credit, realized that they had gone too far, and they issued a sincere apology on their website titled, Hard Drive apologizes to Elon Musk for dunking on him too hard. They acknowledge not only their insensitivity, but also their comedic failings. Quote, we have to admit that we were stunned when Mr. Musk put us in our place by pointing out that the original joke was only a 6 out of 10. It was never our intention to write a middling piece of comedy that Mr. Musk would find on the internet and willfully share with his followers. As a video game publication, we understand how serious a 6 out of 10 review is. It's practically a 0. I try to bring some zingers to the show every week, but I'm 100% certain that I will never write a line 1/10 as funny as that. Guys, it's been a huge episode, so we're going to wrap up fast. If you enjoyed yourself, then for the love of God, smash the like button like Hard Drive just smashed Elon's fragile ego. Hit the subscribe button and ding the notification bell so we can do all of this again next week, and the week after that, and the week after that, forever and ever. And wow, it sounds really depressing when you put it that way. No, it doesn't. I love you guys. See you next week. Bye-bye. Oh, and Destiny nerds, don't go anywhere. This next bit's for you. Alright, all you D1 alpha vets out there, this one's for you. You might recall that some weeks back in my Witch Queen review, I spotlighted these amazing Destiny 2 themed SteelSeries peripherals. They were so popular that they sold out basically instantly, which funnily enough is what happened when I shouted out their new Nova headsets last week as well. So I'm really not joking when I say that this stuff sells out super fast. Why does it sell out so fast, you ask? Well, because it's good shit. SteelSeries make premium gaming peripherals for the enthusiasts out there, people not unlike yourselves, and if you do some Googling, you'll find that all of their products get top tier reviews. This set of Destiny-themed kit is God Roll tier loot. You get the big mouse pad with nice programmable RGB trim. You get the headset, which is based on the SteelSeries Arctis 1, their award-winning model with a 3.5mm head jack, so you can plug it into a PC or a PlayStation or an Xbox controller or whatever. It has a detachable mic and an adjustable headband for a nice fit. Awesome, versatile piece of kit. My personal favorite item in the collection is the mouse, which is based on the SteelSeries Rival 5. I was using a different SteelSeries mouse, but I've permanently switched over to this one now since I love not only the look, but also the feel of it. Fits really nice in the hand, 9 programmable buttons, 5 of those on the side for quick access. It's extremely precise, great weight, not too heavy, not too light. Plus, it's got that programmable RGB as well, so you can sync it to your mouse pad and your SteelSeries keyboard if you're using one, and it looks awesome. Now, this stuff was sold out, but it came back in stock in very, very limited quantities. The headset is still available from SteelSeries.com, and if you use offer code SKILLUP there, you will get 12% off the price of not only that, by the way, but anything on the SteelSeries website, so that's nice. The mouse and mouse pad are also back in stock, but that's only on the Australian Amazon site. Unfortunately, I don't have a discount for those, sorry about that. But if you click the link below, you can head straight to that storefront and you can grab them. Of course, you can get them shipped globally, it'll just cost you extra. To cap all of this off, SteelSeries are giving stuff away. If you click the competition link below, you can enter the running to win the headset, the mouse pad, and a collector's edition of the Witch Queen expansion. That's the one with the cool Finch statue in there. I have that one on my shelf. I love it. Finch's best boy. Click the links to buy the things and hopefully win some free stuff. Thank you, SteelSeries, for being a rad channel partner. Offer code SKILLUP for 12% off at SteelSeries.com. Thanks, SteelSeries, for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.